Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Startup Garage, your source for all things startups. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Nick Payzant on the line, and he's founder and CEO over at Cerna Healthcare. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. I'm glad to be on.
So I'm excited to get into today's topic. So I want to talk a little bit more about startups. I know you've been involved with many successful startups, but before we do that, I just want to get a little bit further into what you're doing over at Cerna Healthcare. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Sure. So Cerna Healthcare provides basically care and assistance to seniors. We also provide some assistance and care to younger folks that are on the spectrum. But primarily we're providing care for seniors. And what we do is we staff our caregivers out in homes or in facilities, anywhere that somebody might need that assistance. We also provide wearables. So we have a watch, for example, that if somebody isn't quite ready to have in-person care, but they do need supervision, they do need somebody, some oversight, then we actually have a wearable that will detect a fall. We can't communicate with them directly. Family can communicate with them directly because basically it's a cell phone on your wrist. And then it will also detect some other things like heart rate, location, that type of thing. So we're pretty comprehensive as it relates to care for seniors or care for anybody who isn't quite independent anymore.
So what markets are you in, just so that the listeners can have a feel for where you're located?
Sure, absolutely. We are in the state of California, Arizona, and Texas.
Fantastic. And so one of the reasons I was excited to have you on the show is because you have a lot of experience with startups, and now I just think the healthcare space in general. When you say something like you have a wearable that you're using, all these other things, there's just so much exciting stuff happening. What excites you right now in healthcare?
So that's just it, and especially with COVID, what we've discovered, and I work with a lot of doctors, and I was with a pulmonologist yesterday who is pretty deep in the middle of it here in Orange County, and although our numbers are really good here, we have a compared to the rest of the country, because we have in Orange County low density, fairly healthy people, a good healthcare system, our numbers are great, but they're still dealing with it day in and day out. And one of the things he told me is this has really accelerated the telehealth market. He said, and he thought that it would be not as good to have to deal with people tele versus in person, but he's found that it's actually better in some respects, that they can go get prescriptions from their medicine cabinet, that they're more comfortable at home, that they can open up and talk a little bit more comfortably. So I'm excited about telehealth, wearables, anything that's going to help provide health care for a more inexpensive and more effective way.
I love that conversation, and so I'm just curious from the doctor's point of view, because I've heard so much about telehealth too. Are doctors kind of warming up to it too? I'm just curious. I know on the client side, a lot of people I've heard of, like patient-wise, I feel it's really convenient. They don't have to leave, especially the senior population. They don't have to leave their home, other things like that. It's a win. Are doctors also warming up to it?
They are. So doctors, I feel like they've been warming up to it, but what I found as of late is COVID has really warmed them up to it. It's pushed them into it. And everybody's the same way with technology, right? It's foreign, it's hard, I'm not going to try it. But when you're forced to, then all of a sudden you become comfortable with it. So we found that it's just forced people, it's forced the industry to become comfortable with it.
Let's go further down the path of wearables and what's exciting there to you, because obviously you have wearables at Cerna Healthcare, but what kind of technology or what excites you in that space?
So one of the problems in today's market with care is the expense. When I started in this business, I could put somebody in a home with mom or dad, what was called a live-in, and they would be there 24/7. And that cost just around $5,000. Today, that same care, which live in, especially in California because laws have changed, doesn't really exist anymore, but now it's well over $10,000. So
wow.
the cost is impacting people, and the way to mitigate that is technology. So we can sprinkle in personal care. So, for example, it's really hard to get somebody to go out and work a couple of hours with mom or dad because that person has to drive out there. They've got to spend gas money. They've only get a couple of hours time, and then they're driving somewhere else and losing money, if you will. So what we found that, well, if we can take mom or dad and put a technology device on them, so now they're supervised in the sense of we know if they've fallen, we know if their heart rate gets low or high, we know if they've taken their medication, and then it's affordable to have somebody come out in these part-time or as needed. So, for example, they can push a button on the wearable, and a caregiver is going to be there helping them prepare a meal. So, strictly from the standpoint of mitigating costs and bringing costs down to our seniors, that's the most exciting part about wearables.
Man, that is exciting. And I guess on my own, one of the things I love about being a podcaster is hearing these stories and kind of technology and things that are out. And I'm like, on my own selfish side of things, I'm like, oh, well, for that whole executive health personalized space, I'm like, oh, well, wearables are getting more and more interesting to me. I'm like, do I need some wearables too? I'm not on the senior level yet, but I just see what's happening, like with like the biomarkers and all the other things that are out there. It should be getting really interesting to me.
Adam, imagine just from a diabetes perspective, having a wearable that's monitoring your blood sugar and sending that information to your endocrinologist, and also alerting you as to when you're going to need to take insulin, if any, or controlled by diet. So those are the kinds of things that are exciting for sure.
Man, that's awesome. So, Nick, that being said, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and kind of what's interesting to you in the healthcare space. If somebody's listening to this, though, and they want to learn more about Cerna Healthcare or about what you do, I mean, what's the best way for them to connect with the system?
They can dial 877-577-6782. They can go to cerna.hc. H is in help, C is in care.com, so CernaHC.com or CernaHealthcare.com.
Fantastic. Well, Nick, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about what you're up to. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Startup Garage, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of things and projects that you're working on. And Nick, thanks again for coming on the show.